and welcome to another edition of the Authenticity in Action podcast. I have been blown away by the feedback and the comments I received to date and how this has been received. And I know that today or tomorrow or whenever it is you're going to listen to this episode or watch it, you are going to love it, because I'm super excited to have a good friend that I've known for a few years now, Mr. Sam Burns, who is CrossFit coach, gymnastics coach, entrepreneur, big thinker, father, and a whole raft of other things that are way too long for me to list off. But Sam has some great perspectives on life and his journey through life. And I know that there's going to be lots of great thought bubbles for you guys today. So welcome, Sam.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You are welcome. It's been a while since we've done a podcast together back in the day, but it's just like old times.
It is just like old times. This is eerily familiar.
It is. We just, different name, but we just slip back into the routine. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. So the goal of this podcast is to talk about and to learn about other people's perspectives of how they're living authentically and how they bring authenticity in their daily life.
Yeah.
And I guess to start your journey, and it's an easy way to start for us, is about your experience as a coach and a mentor in the fitness space primarily, and you've done a lot of work there. So I guess in that journey of you from brand new shiny coach Sam to, evolved master coach Sam now that, sits in front of us, is like, how do you think your definition of authenticity has shifted in that space?
In that space. I guess I would say when I think back to shiny, brand new, wet behind the ears, Coach Sam, I thought what I was doing was authentic. What I realize now is that I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground, not just with regards to coaching and training, but also with regards to who I was. And I put on the mantle of what I thought a coach should look like or sound like or act like. And I learned through many years and many iterations and many classes and many fuck-ups, pardon my French, that I couldn't remain that person. I had to grow and I had to evolve. And where I find myself now is a person who is as a person who is much clearer on who I am and what is important to me. And that includes being okay with my flaws, and that includes...
You have flaws?
Shocker, I know. Turns out I'm human. Getting to a point where I didn't feel like I had to put on airs for other people. I understood who I was and what was really important. I have a pyramid in my brain, and there's something at the top of the pyramid, and everything else doesn't matter as much. And helping to square away the things that really matter has helped me to shed and let go of all of the things I clung to.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I had Pat Barber on recently and talking about that, when you're not in alignment, you'll just cling to everything.
Yes.
And even things that are not important, because it's like, well, and, I spoke about some of my prior life experience where I was always fighting battles, fighting against something until I became okay with me and who I was. Then all of a sudden, everything else was like, I didn't have to fight anymore.
Yeah.
And yesterday I had a really powerful conversation with just this lady I was playing golf with who knew me 5 years ago, so prior to me coming out. And she said, you seem much happier these days, like a much happier person. And she said, to be honest, you used to scare me. I was really scared of you because you were really angry. And I was a bit like, oh, it's awkward. That's a bit. But then I reflected on it. I was like, yeah, because I was, and that's when I said to her, I said, yeah, that's because I was fighting with myself
Yeah.
all the time because I was not in alignment. I said,
Yeah.
then I could come out and do that. And you go, oh, now I'm okay with me. Then I can be okay with everybody else's
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't need to take it on or I don't need to fight it. And it was
Yeah.
a really powerful sort of reframe, especially when someone slaps you in the face with that feedback. You're like, oh, I thought it was all sunshine and unicorn farts back then, but apparently I was not.
Right. Turns out all that stuff we thought we hid actually peeked through.
Mm. And that's, that was one of my, I guess it's probably a good segue into the next question that I had for you, which is like, or what did the pressure feel like to be the always on super coach, motivational, got all my shit together when even life off the floor or outside the coaching sphere felt heavy, but you had to turn up and perform that role?
Um, what I know now is that um, I put on a certain hat when I coach. What I also know now is that putting on that particular hat was a way of me trying to exert control over a a world or universe or situation or environment where I felt very little control. Um, you know, in terms of coaching styles, what we receive from the level one seminar staff is very much autocratic coaching, and autocratic coaching is fantastic because it puts all of the control in the coach's hands. And so, if you've got an issue with time, more autocratic coaching will solve your problem. Um, if you've got a rowdy class, more autocratic coaching will maybe solve your problem. Maybe it depends on what time of day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I love that you use the phrase fighting. Like it's like I was spoiling for a fight, and I would tell everybody I'm not a violent person and I'm not an angry person, but it's like, man, I acted like it.
Mm.
I carried a chip on my shoulder, and I was perpetually pissed off at something, and then I would go and I would run a class, and I would switch on, and there was a face and a tone. My wife calls it coach voice, and I it breaks out when I talk to my children.
Yeah.
It's
It's never
like,
good. I was about to say it's never good to bring that out at home with the
no,
spouse. No,
no,
no.
no, and now if I coach, there's I don't feel the pressure
Mm.
to exert as much control because I don't feel either from myself or from other people. I don't feel the judgment that I feared.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in that environment, as particularly like the way that you earn yourself onto the various seminars, like
Mhm.
it's based on feedback and someone else's perception of you. So you feel like you've got to do this to be good enough to be accepted. Like
Mhm.
you live and die by this person's assessment of you,
Mhm.
week in, week out. And, you could intern at 1,000 seminars for one person and they just go, nope, like he's never coming on seminars.
Yeah.
Do it for another person and they go, come on. Like
Right.
you're the man we need.
Right.
It's very subjective, but
Yes.
you invest so much into that part of the dream. You're like, well, if I turn up in the version of me that maybe doesn't feel so good about myself, then they're never going to want me.
Sure.
So I've got to be this other, sort of version, I guess.
Mhm.
And it's hard to operate in that space, isn't it?
Well, it's not
It's not healthy.
sustainable, that's for sure.
Yeah. Some point it cracks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's interesting you say about the chip on your shoulder because, like, that's very much what I felt.
Mm.
Like, for the majority until 46 and a half years old, like,
Mm.
I would battle with the administration at the golf club about why we can't do this and why isn't this fair and why do we do this? And then in jobs, and then, even when I had the affiliate, I would
Yeah.
battle with other affiliates and stuff. And it was just always a thing.
Yeah.
And then when I could let all that go and go, that doesn't matter. Like, because over here, I have unconditional love and acceptance. So it doesn't matter about these things. I don't need to seek it out and fight for it.
Sure.
I have it, and it started here. Like one of my things I talk to clients about in my authenticity blueprint program is that it starts with you. You have to come home to you first. And even Pat said it on our episode with him was, when I can be okay with me, everybody else's stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I can be okay with that too.
Yeah. I heard something similar. A guy speaking from the podium, he said, um, live and let live is a wonderful sentiment, but most people have it backwards.
Mm.
In reality, it should be let live in live.
Mm.
I let you live the way you want to according to your morals and values, and in doing so I get permission to live according to mine. You know?
And that's Sharon has been a good teacher for me, and just leave them with it. That's their story.
Absolutely.
Just leave them with it. And it's okay to leave them with it, and you go do your own thing. It's a hard thing to, when, because logically your brain goes, no, but I want to be right, or I have a need to be the person. It's like when you lose that, it's quite freeing.
Yeah.
So I guess if we think about coaches and coaching, and it can go beyond like on the floor movement coaching, and we know that being a CrossFit coach is way more than just squats and presses. There's, you do get into talking to people, and you do have to connect with people.
Yes.
So in your opinion, what do you think separates, a good coach from a coach that is able to be truly authentic in that role?
I think the analytical personality wants to start with defining good. Like, are we saying a person who is a good coach is the person who gets everyone to the end of the class and nobody dies? Right? Like as a bare minimum, right?
Yeah, and it's a fun class. Everyone had a good time. They high five.
Cool.
They're out the door. They got sweaty.
No,
Great.
right. Okay, so nobody's going to ask for a refund. Nobody's filing a police report.
No,
so okay,
none of that.
I would say the difference between the coach who checks the minimum boxes, right? And in this particular case, like a good coach, they can check the minimum boxes. And an authentic coach is a coach who has enough awareness, no matter how they got to it, to understand who they are, both on the floor and off the floor, how they present to other people. And ideally, the ultimate level is you have the awareness of who those other people are, their personality types. And you can take the you that is real, and you can not change, but you can be the best version of yourself, the most authentic version of yourself that is still right for this person, and still right for this person, and still right for this person.
And I think the potential for impact is exponentially greater for the authentic coach rather than a good coach. A good coach will tell you, and their intention is, I want to save and change lives. Great. But doing that through burpees and thrusters is only so much. If you're an authentic coach and able to be vulnerable and show the clients that, and allow them to be that, your reach and your impact is far, far greater than just, I did, a PB back squat today.
Yeah. Well, Nathan Bird says that without a relationship with the athlete, no coaching can happen. And I don't believe you can have a relationship with another human being until you are vulnerable, until you are authentic. Everything short of that is, if you're going to mince words, everything short of that is exercise, instruction, or training. It's only once you are willing to engage with that other human being one-to-one and understand that person and allow that person to understand you that you can actually begin to coach somebody. It requires that relationship. And again, the ultimate level is you've got that relationship with no matter who walks into your room.
and you're able to look at each person and go, I've got you. I know what you
Yes.
need,
I
rather than
exactly.
I'm just going to recite this from the manual and just I'm going to tell you everything I know and this is gospel.
Yes.
And I think like you and I have both worked as coaches to other coaches,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and we've had that relationship where you're working with somebody and like there isn't that vulnerability, there isn't that openness, and you know how hard that is to try and crack that, because
Mm-hmm.
once you can get just a little bit in behind the curtain,
Mm-hmm.
like how much faster they're going to accelerate. But until it's just generic and surface level, you sit in on a call and you're going, okay, great, this is okay, the same, good. But you need to find the way that's going to open them up a little bit,
Yeah.
and it goes both ways. Like
Yes.
you are just changed from
Mm-hmm.
that relationship as much as they will be. It goes both ways. It can't just be I'm going to pour all this stuff into you. Like you do get back when it's a genuine two-way connection.
Yes.
And that goes to business life or, exercise.
Yes.
Like we've seen it on a floor when somebody on the gym floor when somebody's just not engaging in it, and then all of a sudden they buy in and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
here we are,
Yeah.
like, and great things happen from that. So it's a powerful shift.
It's an incredibly powerful shift, and I would argue that one of the ways I'm doing it right. So if we've got that two way exchange, right?
Mm,
You're vulnerable, I'm vulnerable, you're getting something out of this. The way I know I'm doing it right is when I feel like I'm getting more out of it than the potential coach is or the client is or
mm,
whoever. It's like
yep.
this relationship that we have now is sustaining something within me.
Mm,
You might be getting a product or a service on the end of it, but it's the relationship, the connection that is sustaining me.
mm.
Yeah.
And there are relationships there are people out there that can fake that, and they can manipulate you to thinking that, oh, I have that with this person. And then you figure out, oh,
Yeah.
shit, I totally read the room wrong.
Yeah.
And that, I think, at times makes people reluctant to open up into that sort of relationship, because they're like, what if you burnt me like the last two did? What if this is just a song and dance?
Mm-hmm.
So I think as humans, one of our challenges is being able to trust it, but also have a little bit of the word I used the other day and talking to someone about this was um, optimistic cynicism. So I go into it thinking that this is all going to work, but I still have that little bit of wait and see,
Yeah.
and just not go completely into the deep end of the pool to start with.
Yeah.
So as a coach, like we've got to be careful of that and understanding that, and as humans, like not everyone's gonna, just because you're standing there with arms wide open, they're not
Sure.
gonna greet you with that. It's got to be earned, I
Sure.
guess, is the point that I'm trying to make with a lot of words.
Absolutely. It does have to be earned. And it's funny you talk about like, optimistic cynicism. In my brain, I'm equating it to a governor on an engine. Like
Mm.
you can't put the pedal to the firewall, right? Like it's
Yeah.
only going to go so fast. And what that I can have it as the coach, the client can have it as the person who's coming into the relationship, and both parties, I think so often we view things as all or nothing.
Mm.
I do this, I am this is what I think. And there's freedom in being willing to let some of those things go and just pull back. And it was not easy for me to learn how to do that. And that's not to say that I have it entirely figured out, but I've
Mm.
been better at being able to do that.
Yeah, and that's probably been some of the experience of our journey together. As for a while there, I was your coach,
Yeah.
for full transparency,
Yes.
and you do have periods where it's like you are 100 miles an hour at things, at everything, all the things, and then you're like, I got to pump the brakes, but I don't know how to pump the brakes. And
Yeah.
if I do pump the brakes and step off for a while, how does that define me?
Yes.
What does that make me? Because for a time in life, and I know I did it, I defined myself as an affiliate owner or as a CrossFit coach or as a business coach. Like And when I didn't have those things anymore, I'm like, oh, shit, who am I? And
Yeah.
then you don't want to let go of those things because you're like, but then what's left? But when we come to that whole thing of who we are, and again, we keep coming back to that, who we are and where, like, who we are as people and what our values are, then it's like, okay, that's just a label. Now I can do the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a challenge for you. And I know I've had challenges when you've got to pull back and go, okay, I can't do this thing anymore. Like it's not serving me when you come to that realization.
Sure. Yeah, it was a challenge multiple times,
Mm,
and still is, it was hard for me, you know, I was coaching at an affiliate in Massachusetts. My wife and I moved up here, and I almost bought into an affiliate. I started coaching at that affiliate and almost bought that affiliate from that owner.
mm,
And when I chose not to buy that affiliate, um, relatively quickly, it was not an ideal working situation.
mm,
He and I had the owner and I, of course, had very very honest and very in depth discussions, and it's hard to go back and just be business as usual after stuff like that, and that's okay.
mm,
Um, and when I left coaching full time, it was like, well, son of a bitch, what the heck am I going to do here? And then I was presented with another opportunity, and I leaned really hard into that. And part of the gut check for me has always been my wife and my kids. And so many times it feels like in the last several years I've been on the receiving end of a conversation with my wife where she's trying to describe how she feels. And
mm,
the only thing I can do is take it as a personal attack or feel threatened
mm,
because what she's talking about threatens an identity I have created for myself as opposed to me, you know?
mm. And that's a really good shift into sort of where I want to lead you down next is about, being a dad
Yeah.
and your family. Because I know, like, from knowing you for as long as I have, I know how important that is to you. That's everything to, have, you know, Katie and the kids, and that's
Mm-hmm.
your cornerstone. That's your foundation for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, being a dad, that alone is a masterclass in vulnerability, like 100%, like nothing, and unpeels you more than having a little, flesh ball that you're suddenly solely responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
So when we, to talk about like that conversation, those hard conversations you've had and attaching it to identity, how has fatherhood for you changed your view of strength and vulnerability?
That's a really interesting question because, as cliche as it sounds, I find myself defaulting to what my parental examples were.
Mm,
And the problem with that kind of is related to a quote I heard recently, and I don't know where it came from, but it was the end of childhood is when you realize that your parents are also living life for the first time right now,
mm,
right? And my father, he had children at a different age than I did. He had different work situation, different home situation. He was living everything the first time, and
mm,
good, bad, or indifferent. Those are my examples.
mm,
And when I think of strength and vulnerability, I think of how I interact with my children when I'm disciplining them.
mm,
And I have had to examine very closely the whys behind what I do, and what I think is necessary. And I have had to learn concepts like co-regulation, where
mm,
like it's I had to be strong by accepting that my kid wasn't just going to automatically respect me. You know, um, I wanted him to respect me automatically, but his respect had to be earned, you know?
Mm.
And I had to be strong to realize that that's not the way it works, despite what I want. And I had to be strong to realize that being tough is not necessarily the right outcome. I had to be strong to be willing to be vulnerable and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. I need some help. I can't do this alone. It's fatherhood that pushed me into therapy,
Mm.
and an ability to reconcile what I felt about how I believe the world should present itself with this little human who's, you know, up until he's 2 has about the relative intelligence of a dog, right? And then a little bit after that, it gets, you know, wildly out of control and zero emotional regulation. And I had to learn how to be strong so that I could not fuck my kid up as much as possible.
Mm.
And I had to be vulnerable enough to realize that it doesn't matter what my intentions are to a certain extent. And that's been, when I think about strength and vulnerability now, I think about the best possible way to rein in my first reaction
Mm.
so that I can be the best that I can be for my children.
Mm. And it's a challenge because, you know, they're continually growing and evolving and expanding their boundaries and
Yes.
testing the thing. And they really are a mirror. Like, I was talking to someone recently who were like, you know, if my kid's being a turd,
Mm-hmm.
then that's something in some way that I've done.
Yeah.
And they've learnt that from me. And
Yep.
I can yell at them for being a turd, but then it's like, well, where did they pick that up? Where did they get that from?
Yeah.
Well, in some way it's down me. And, you know, they don't listen to what you say, but they watch every single thing you do. And like we've seen that in the gym where suddenly a toddler who can't even really stand up well is doing burpees or,
Yeah.
you know, lying on the floor and trying to do bench press or whatever, or squatting
Yep.
because they see it over and over. And that's their, you know, they don't listen, which
Yeah.
is, you know, half the members in our gyms never listen, but
Absolutely.
they're not watching either. But the kids are always watching you. And it's, we do things like whether it's a word or whether it's a gesture or whether it's something subconscious and they pick it up. They, you know, we joke about kids being sponges, but they literally pick up your energy and they see, and in their brain, even though they can't comprehend it, they're seeing where they fit in your priorities just by, are you looking at them when you're talking to them, or are you still doing something else while you're talking to them, or that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, that's a really powerful insight that, you know, you just shared there about strength and vulnerability. So as dad, and you've got these two amazing little humans, and I can't believe your youngest is just about to turn 2.
Tell me
I
about
saw
it.
today, I was like, where did that 2 years go? Like,
I know.
seriously. um, but do you ever feel, or what does it feel like? I'm assuming you do feel it. So
Okay.
what does the pressure feel like to then have it all together as a dad, even when internally it's incredibly messy? And you're, you know, even those times where you've wrestled with, is this something I need to be doing? Is this priority? Do I need to pull
Mm-hmm.
back? And having your own life struggles,
Mm-hmm.
but then feeling like you have to have it all together and be that strong dad figure and say, no, this is fine. We're just sailing along down the river.
That, thankfully, right now, knock on wood, is one of the things that I don't feel a lot of pressure for. And there's a caveat to this statement, right? So
Mm.
my wife is an absolute boss hoss. She is far and away the breadwinner in our family. And through many discussions and um, understandings and everything like that, I finally got to a point where I was willing to not attempt to do anything other really than just be a stay-at-home dad. And kind of like what we talked about earlier, I was willing to let go of all of those other things. And once I let go of all the other things, the other hats that I was trying to put on, the other identities that I was trying to cling to, all of a sudden I lost the, there was no more fight. It's not like I
Mm.
lost the fight. It's like the fight stopped happening.
Mm.
And my life as a father got a lot easier. I had greater emotional bandwidth. I had a greater mental bandwidth. I'm in typical male fashion. I'm incredibly myopic, and maybe even more so for than most people. And I can't do a bunch of different things very well or at all. But if you give me one or two things, I can really fucking crush it.
Mm,
And that right now looks like I have stepped back entirely from trying to be an entrepreneur or be a full time coach. I consider myself a husband and a father who goes off about one weekend a month and does gymnastics things. And I have a mentorship client who I meet with. And beyond that, I'm not willing to put anything else on my plate because
mm,
finally, for the first time in 4 years, I feel like I'm at a point where I am actually executing on fatherhood and on being a husband at the level that I wish I had been, that I feel
mm,
like I should be. You know what I mean? And so the pressure has gone away because I don't have anything competing for it.
mm. And it's interesting you say that the level that you wish you'd had 4 years ago. But again, to go back to, what you said about like our parents, you're doing something for the first time basically every day.
Yep.
And you do the best you can with what you know. And the hope is that when we know better, we do better.
Mm-hmm.
And, our parents, good, bad, or indifferent for people in life, did the best they could with what they had
Mm-hmm.
and the knowledge and the skills they had, and they got that. And it's all just this cascading, process. And I think, one of your strengths is your ability to be, as I said, a big thinker and to be very self reflective and to be able to go, look in the mirror almost and say, this is not the Sam I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't do that and have that quest to even now look back and go, well, I wish I was better 4 years ago, it's that quest to always be better that's got you to this point now. And in
Mm-hmm.
another 4 years, you're going to go, oh, I wish I was a better person 4 years ago. Well, or a better dad, better husband. But
Yeah.
it's just that evolution. So sometimes I think we need to give ourselves grace for the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot about this on my other podcast about that we can give ourselves a hard time by having expectations going, I should be at this. And in life, we're given arbitrary milestones we're supposed to have achieved, the 2.3 kids, the zero point 0.5 dog, and
Sure.
the picket fence. And but we need to give ourselves grace for we're all doing every day for the first time and we're
Yeah.
learning different things. And the quest is just to be better and go, well, did I learn or grow from whatever it was? If it went well, if it didn't go
Mm-hmm.
well, and even interactions with people. Like I've reflected the last few months on interactions like, was I the best person or the best version of Lisa in that interaction? Yes, no.
Mm-hmm.
If it's no, then how do I make sure that that doesn't happen again?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't undo it. It's been
No.
done. So how do I move forward? And how do we keep, which, comes back to this definition of living authentically
Yes.
is what aligns with my values. And I have a coaching program that I run, the Authenticity Blueprint, and it's like a foundation for any major life change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first thing that I take people through is their values, because if you don't know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know how you're going to then take the next step and get to what you think it is you want?
Mm-hmm.
And what's that going to look like? Because if I can't come back to this, then I don't know, then you'll be just drifting around aimlessly trying to figure out why nothing sticks, why nothing works.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to that coming home to yourself again,
Yeah.
which I think has been one of your strengths is like, these are my values. And now, as you said earlier, you've got this pyramid
Yeah.
and what's at the top matters, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you've got it squared away. So it's like, I know who I am, I know what my cornerstone is. So if it doesn't fit into these parameters, then it's a hell no.
You know, you you use that sticky little word. You've got it squared away. That phrase. It's it's I love that you talk about giving ourselves grace. The times when I find it easiest to give myself grace is when I don't, is when I let go of getting to a destination. When I don't have to, so for example, I said, I'm finally executing on being a father and a husband at a level
Mm,
that I always felt I should be, right?
mm,
That doesn't mean that I'm done, right?
mm,
What it means is I've gotten okay with being present and the now, right? And part of that was letting go of other things that I held on to as a form of identity. And part of my now, part of my being present is continuously seeking feedback, is continuously looking to be the best version of myself, right? And if I can keep my focus on the seeking and the journey, it's harder for me to get hung up on the outcome and the finish line and the horizon. And I don't have it squared. I feel like I have done the best job yet of letting go of trying to square it,
mm.
if that makes sense.
Yep. No, it makes perfect sense because you're right. When we get fixated on that end point, then we tend to let all this stuff at the side because, like you said, myopic. I just want to lean hard into that, and this is the direction. There's no deviation. We're on train
Yes.
tracks. We're going.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, and this is where I think a lot of people struggle and where we come across the term midlife crisis
Mm-hmm.
because people get to this point in their life where they're like, I never wanted any of this.
Right.
So how did I get here? And they wake up one day and they've followed all the rules
Yep.
and they've done all the things. Like you see people that are third and fourth generation doctors hate medicining, hate
Yep.
doctoring.
Yep.
But I am because this is what our family does.
Yep.
And they've followed all the things and they get to a certain point where they're like, this does not fit me. I don't fit in my own life or my own skin. And, it's not just about, it's identity, it's, work, it's orientation, all those things where it's like everything felt like it doesn't fit.
Yep.
But I made it fit and I made it work. But now, so focused on getting things squared away, like, yeah, it's a square now, but I'm round. Like this, it doesn't work.
The more insidious version of that is when you actually get everything you were hoping for.
Mm,
You go to school, you get the 2.5 kids and the 0.5 dog and the picket fence, and you get all the things, and you get to the end, and you're like, "Where's my happy chemicals?
mm,
Where's my feeling of why why don't I feel fulfilled? Why don't I feel
mm,
like okay, I'm good? You
mm.
know?" And it's
And
good.
no, you go.
I just that again that fixation or that focus. There's you spoke earlier about when I'm aligned with me, I don't have to fight anything else. I think so often that comes from we have like a hole in our soul. And for some people, it's shaped like a relationship. And for some people, it's shaped like money. And for some people,
Mm,
it's shaped like status. And we attempt to pour things into that. And we forget the fact that we can fill it ourselves. We can fill it from the inside out.
mm.
But that takes more strength and vulnerability than so many people are willing to um, be aware of or endeavor into.
Yeah, it's the tough, gritty, hard stuff. And, I was talking with somebody the other day and they were talking how one of their clients had said, gratitude's all warm and fuzzy, but the real act of gratitude is hard work. Like
Yes.
you've got to dig into the stuff. It's very easy to go, yeah, I did my 3 gratitude things today and for the butterflies or but to really make it powerful, impactful, it's that hard work. The same
Yeah.
as, authenticity. You've got to be prepared to do the work
Yeah.
to unpack, well, who am I and what matters to me?
Yeah.
And on more than just a surface level, because you're right. If we keep trying to fill externally, you will never be full. And
Yeah.
then you'll just keep seeking more, 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 which
Mm-hmm.
in hindsight, that's why I had the world's largest collection of CrossFit shoes at the time, because that was just a thing. You got that quick hit, quick dopamine, like, oh, I've got the latest shoes. I'm the first person to get them. Great. And then 20 minutes later, you're gone. And you're like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Until you realize, yes, that you feel that. And that hole isn't about anything material.
No.
It's more than that. Once you start to dig, and that's when people go, feet are getting a little toasty by the fire here. I got to take a step back, and don't want to get into that. But the return on investment for that work is greater than any paid thing you'll ever do in your life.
It is. So I'm in a unique situation. You're preaching to the choir here. We have a phrase in recovery. Attitude is a action word, right? Pardon me. Gratitude is an action word. You don't get to say, "Oh, I'm grateful about blah blah blah," and just automatically feel better. Resolve your whatever. You've got to live it out, and that looks like different things for different people. I was forced by circumstance. I'm 10 years sober from drugs and alcohol. I was forced by circumstance to examine my life at a younger age than most people. I was in my late 20s when I got sober. And the consequences for not doing so for me would have been death. And so it was literally a life or death thing. You don't have the option of sweeping some of this stuff under the rug. You have to examine these things. You have to ask hard questions. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, because the alternative is you're not going to be anything, right? And what I have found in the decades since, and through going through recovery and into CrossFit and coaching and mentorship and gymnastic seminar staff, what I found is it was such a blessing for me to go through those things, because everybody has the opportunity, and probably should, look in the mirror and be honest about what they see. The difference between me and someone else, though, is that the consequences for them not doing so are not life and death. And so it's really easy to just sweep it under the rug and step away from the fire, or however you want to describe it. And it's not until stuff gets really bad that it's tearing your life apart, or you got to buy $100,000 sports car to feel good, or whatever it is. Like, it's not until those things, most people don't hit that until what, 40s, 50s, maybe 60s. It's not until then that they are actually willing to look in the mirror and be honest.
And I think I agree with you 100%. And I wanted to dig into some of your recovery journey next, like, where I'm going. It's like, but I do think that it is always, like you were saying, you were compelled to do that because it was a matter of actual life and death.
Yeah.
But I think also for people, it is a matter of life and death, maybe not in the physical sense of like they'll no longer be with us, but sure. I believe that, so one of my concepts that I talk about is that when you're living inauthentically, and like I called it dying inside, because like on the outside, my whole life looked like I had all the things, business, successful, marriage, the whole thing. I was living the dream. But inside, behind that white picket fence, I was literally dying and crumbling.
Yeah.
And, as much as I wanted to be seen, I did not want to be seen, because it's like, if you peek around the corner and you just see that this is just a cheap facade on the front, you're not going to like what you see. So you have that barrier. But I think people are slowly, and they're just not aware of it, that they are, killing their soul, for want of a better word, and that they could be living a really rich, full life, that they just don't know that yet.
There's so much in what you just said. Like, people could be living a rich, full life, right? But they don't. They live what they think they should be living, or what someone told them they should be living. And
Mm-hmm.
that bit about, if you peek around the corner and you see, then you're not going to like it. All of that is fear.
Mm.
It's fear run amok. And living in fear for so many people, rather, let me say this, confronting fear is a fate worse than death,
Mm.
right? And so I agree
Yes.
with you entirely that it is a spiritual death. And I can't remember if it was
Mm.
Jung or Freud who said that when you live outside of your true value structure, your true moral structure, it creates a soul sickness.
Mm.
And it's you can't resolve it until you bring how you think and how you act into
Mm.
alignment with who you are.
And
And
our bodies and our systems will manifest that.
yes.
Like in people go like, oh, I can't get rid of this skin condition. I can't get rid of the thing. It's like, well, it could be this other thing. We could treat it with creams or stuff, or maybe we could just see where you're not in alignment with life. And maybe once you lift that weight off, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, shit, I
Mm-hmm.
can sleep better. I lose weight. I feel clearer.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not picking up the hints without getting too woo woo, but like the universe will put you where you need to be.
Sure.
And if you don't go there, and the need is great enough for you to be there, it will literally slap you across the head with something to send you in that direction. And whether that's like an illness that stops you in your tracks or something, universe doing universe things will do something. And so it has to come out somehow. So whether it's physiologically or
Sure.
psychologically, when you have that soul sickness,
Yeah.
it's an actual thing. Like medicine's not going to treat it, but it's a thing.
But that's the thing, is your soul sickness, unfortunately, is attached to a human mind
Mm.
that, the human capacity for self-delusion is unparalleled, right? Um, you've got all of these things manifesting, hypothetical person, you've got all these things manifesting physically in your life. And to your point, life is going to cross and it's going to bitch slap you and let you know. And that person will still swear up and down that they don't know what's going on,
Yeah, 100% denial.
because the the fear of turning toward the honesty is
Mm.
so great. It's
Mm.
it's paralyzing. You said something else earlier. I wanted to be seen and felt so alone. Alcoholism and addiction is a disease of isolation.
Mm.
I used to pride myself on being a misanthrope, and it wasn't until the phrase that I think of is, if you want to get to know God, get to know his children. And it wasn't until I opened myself up to other people that I
Mm.
began to get any relief from my isolation. And it,
Mm.
it wasn't me opening myself, it was me being open to other people.
Yeah.
I, being genuinely interested in asking them about themselves and, you know, putting myself at their disposal.
Mm.
And in doing so, I got this relief.
Yeah. And your sobriety journey, it's a core part of who you are now. That's what you live.
Mm-hmm.
Like that it's a journey that continues.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when you talk about the recovery journey, like what does authenticity in recovery look like? Like not just in, the milestones, your 12 steps
Mm-hmm.
and you doing the things, but
Yeah.
in the day-to-day grind as you embark on this journey and then as you continue it, like what does authenticity and living authenticity look like as
Yeah.
part of that journey for you?
You know, I the best that I have right now is, I believe that I drank because um, I had an inability to accept life as it presented itself to me, um, and I drank because I didn't see the value of myself as a human being. I predicated my worth and value on output and success. Um, and those and other things combined to me, combined into me living a life of dishonesty that enabled me to continuously numb myself and turn a blind eye and avoid, deny, in general, not look in the mirror, right?
Mm.
And so now, what being authentic means to me is everything that could be opposite of that. I must live in an honest manner, even understanding that if I'm going to be honest, it might upset somebody or they might not like what I have to say. It doesn't matter. Like
Mm.
I can't be dishonest about this thing. It manifests its authenticity to me as trying to let go of the concept that I've got it figured out, and that if everybody would just shut up and do what I tell them to do, everything will work out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Accepting life on life's terms.
Yeah. And, um, Sharon's often spoken to me as like just handing it over to God
Mm-hmm.
or whoever it is that you talk to. And, she would talk to her mother, and mother would have struggles with things, and she'd say, just hand it over. Like,
Yeah.
you can't control it. Like, that's someone else's narrative and story. You just got to leave them with it
Yeah.
and hand it over. And it's not yours to carry.
Well, and you never actually controlled it anyway.
No,
And
it was the
that's the big
illusion.
yes. Well, it's not the illusion; it's the lie.
Mm.
It's the lie that you told yourself, right?
Yep.
And whether you learned it or you subconsciously knew different and you wanted to create a reality, the only truth, the ultimate truth that I have been exposed to is I control nothing in this world except my thoughts, my actions, and my reactions.
Mm.
And everything outside of that, the great majority of it, is none of my business.
Mm.
And it's my job to, I had a buddy in AA who would take the serenity prayer and add a couple taglines on it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which is everything. God grant me the
Yeah.
courage to change the things I can, which is only me.
Yeah.
And God grant me the wisdom to know the difference, because I am a drug addict and an alcoholic, and I will fucking forget it, today.
Yeah.
And and when I can not forget it, when I can just worry about this,
Mm.
those are good days.
Yeah. So, your journey has been probably you've had more opportunity for self-reflection, self-growth than the average person through your various, this journey. How do you bring those lessons forward, to your boys and to your marriage even? Like, how do you bring those lessons forward to go, you know what, I can't control these things. I've just got to leave people with it. But, here's how I'm compelled to live. Like, how do you bring that forward into, I guess, with the little people is like the version of manhood
Mm-hmm.
that you want your kids to learn from you, that you want your wife to see, and then other people that are in your sphere
Mm-hmm.
to grow from your experiences and your journey and your perceptions of that?
Man, that is a dense question. I think of my kids and what I try to do is impart in them an understanding that yes, you can. Especially for my oldest, emotional regulation is very difficult. You can't control the first thing that pops into your brain, but you have a better chance of controlling how long you entertain that thought or that thing, right? And so while trying to let go of my own preconceived notions about how he should be managing himself, I try to instill in him the knowledge that he actually can do something to affect how he feels and to not feel trapped, because if he's anything like me, he feels trapped by his emotions.
Mm.
With my wife, I'm blessed. My wife is also in recovery. Um, so I have a partner who will throw my own words back at me and challenge me appropriately. I also have the knowledge and awareness that my wife is human. And when she says something that is, you know, hurtful or passive aggressive, I can choose to let that go.
Mm.
And there's plenty of work for me to do in letting that go without me trying to fuck up, telling her how to say things different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's fraught with peril, Sam.
Oh, yeah. That's a landmine.
But it's being able to take the lessons that we've learned and be able to impart them without, like, we're standing at the podium. This is the way it is, and I'm handing you a couple of stone tablets, and this is the way it is now. Like, there
And
are
in, and
ways
in,
to do that.
and in my case, without being impatient that you haven't figured it out already,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, people will come to things in their own time. Like, some of those, the old cliche things, you can lead a horse to water. They're so
Yeah.
true, though, because, and in our experience, as in coaching people, you can tell them what to do,
Yeah.
but doesn't mean that they're actually going to execute and implement until, I've had clients come back to me going, I've had this fantastic idea. It's like, okay, cool. We talked about that 4 weeks ago, but I'm glad you think that's your idea now. But if you're going to do it, do it. People need to get to things in their own time because they're navigating their narratives and their stories and their stuff.
Yes.
And I think one of the big lessons I've learned, and I've tried to work with people, is that you can rewrite those. They are not cast in stone.
Mm-hmm.
You can, whatever story you've been told about who you should be, how you should be, you can redo that. Like, you can
Yes.
rewrite it because you're the only, like you said, the only thing you're responsible for is you. So you can also set your own course to where you want to be and who you want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then rewrite that story about yourself. But people don't give themselves permission to do that, and they don't understand that they can do that. And I guess going through your process of recovery, you give yourself permission to do that because, well, this old version wasn't working for me. So now I have to rewrite
Mm-hmm.
my identity, my perception of self, all of those things and of the world around me.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm going to stay stuck here and keep in that loop.
Yes.
Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. I mean, for me, if I didn't rewrite, that's a great way to put it. I had a way that I thought, a way that I thought, a way that I viewed the world. And if I didn't rewrite that, I was almost guaranteed to go back to where I was. And where I was so uncomfortable. I was what I would consider a high bottom drunk. We talk about everyone has their bottom. My bottom didn't include bankruptcy and losing a home and losing a family and all of those other things. It was very shallow in terms of a bottom, and still it was incredibly emotionally and spiritually uncomfortable for me. And if I hadn't been willing to, rather, the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain of change.
Mm.
And to your point, where people have to find things in their own time, we are simple creatures, humans, when it comes down to chemicals and brain stems and all that other stuff. And the avoidance of pain is a gene deep driver for every single one of us.
100%.
And your higher order functioning, the lie you can tell yourself, right, will only take you so far.
Mm.
And I'll never forget it. There's this guy who used to sit in meetings, and I was in Massachusetts, and he had a wicked wicked Boston accent, and he would sit in the back of the meeting and would say, "When the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, you will change." And it's the truth, and
Mm,
nobody can rush that. You can't lead that horse to water. You
mm,
can't even tell him that the water exists.
mm,
He's got to come to you dying of thirst, you know?
mm. And it is like it's true in fitness and people's health and wellness. Like until they hit their bottom, then it's you, and we can't say what that looks like for any one person.
No.
So, I mean, we could talk for hours, and I've loved this chat, but I know that it's a late at night over for you. I'm
Yeah,
doing podcast.
it's 11:30 p.m. here.
Yeah, so I'm doing podcasts in Lisa time now, not at weird US time, which is great.
Yeah.
But just to wrap up, I've just got a couple of questions that I like to ask every guest.
Okay.
So, what's one thing that people get wrong about you or assume just because of your, you know, online image, persona, or your background?
Um, I guess it's that I'm maybe not aware of my own ego. Very aware of my own
You're
ego.
very aware of it.
My ego
Might
is
not
not
act
my
on
own
it, but I'm
ego.
very aware of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. And finish this sentence for me. Authenticity in action is?
Unrelenting honesty.
That's a very common theme from guests on to that question. So I know that you're not involved in a lot of sort of side projects. You are, super dad. I must say my eyeballs twitched when I saw over Easter, like the boys were colouring in your rogue plates, and I was like, no, that can't be a thing. I just want to wipe them. But what's something that's not, business or branding or anything like that,
Yeah.
just from a joy or purpose perspective, that is really lighting you up right now?
Um, I'm part of the CrossFit gymnastics seminar staff, and that is a thing that I would do for free.
Mm,
It I love that course. I think it's a wonderfully taught course, and I think that I've been all around the country and the world, and I've talked to I don't know how many coaches at this point, and every single one of them has the same problem, and it's I want to feel more comfortable coaching gymnastics, um, and there's so much bullshit out there that makes life harder than it has to be, and
mm,
I think this course does a really good job of um, stripping away some of that BS and giving people honest, straightforward answers that they don't have to worry about being a trick or a gimmick.
yeah,
Um, that that course lights me up. I love those weekends. Of course it's hard being away from the kids, but I never regret it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's awesome. And if people want to follow along for some Sam goodness,
Yeah.
where can they follow you?
Instagram at Coach Sam Burns, and that's it now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Are you still doing your Substack? I don't think I've seen one for a little bit, but they
No,
were
I
quite
I got
insightful.
Well, that was yeah. I got sick for a run of time and haven't come back to that yet. But I've
Mm,
got 3 or 4 drafts sitting in an envelope, so
yeah.
it's a good stab to get me to finish one of those.
Perfect. All right, my friend. Well, thank you for your time. I am very grateful for this chance to catch up and get your perspective on this. I think it's an important subject. So I look forward to chatting again real soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.